Hi, Kathy here with Kathy's Cute Creations. Today we're going to start on the second barn block, and I'm going to show you what I've done to prepare for it. Now I'm not going to show you how to do the top part because you know that from the first video. I'm going to just do the body of it is what I'm calling the part that I'm doing. Alright, let's get started. Here is the block 2 pattern. And I hope this isn't too confusing, and I'm going to show you what I've done. So what I've done is I went ahead and I cut out the fabric and marked it. Now, if you have a pattern and you're following along, you know that you only need one of A. And as you can see, I've got a bunch. I just wanted to cut them out in different colors. You only needed 2. But if you're looking at your directions, this block calls for 2 B's and 3 F's. So instead of just cutting out 5, I've cut out a variety so I can change them, interchange them. So you've pretty well know now what I'm doing here. So hopefully I can keep this glare off. So that's all I've done. I just went ahead and I pre-cut all of these. And of course these little ones here, that's what's going to make the body of ours today. So go ahead and sew your top part. And then we're going to get started on this next portion. After I did that, I set those aside, and then it tells you to take your J1 and J2 and you're connecting them to your M's. So my M's are the polka dotted. And you're going to have 4 J1s and 4 J2s. So you're putting the right sides together. Now don't forget to draw your line, and when it comes to these, I'm going to flip it over because you want the fabric with the lightest so that you can draw your line. And you're drawing it diagonally because you're sewing on either side of the line. So just take your fabric. You can put it together or not, it doesn't make any difference. I'll pin mine to keep them together, but just mark each one right down the middle. That's not the sewing line now, that's the line that you're going to be cutting on. These are going to be really teeny tiny. I have never made anything from something this tiny before. So this is a first for me. And then, whoops, I didn't get my line drawn dark enough. Okay, let's try that again. Here we go. And then what you can do, because you're going to be sewing 1/4 inch, is I just take my ruler and line it up on the line I made first, then mark it, and then this is the cutting line. So to distinguish it and keep me straight, I just make it dashed. And I'll sew against that line, and then this is going to be the square right here. If you're worried that the middle line is off, I'll show you on this piece here. All you have to do is, let me go ahead and draw that first line. This is the one that's diagonally. Then take your ruler, find your 1/4 inch, which mine is the yellow line. Take the yellow line, put it across your diagonal on your fabric, and then mark. Then you're not really paying attention to the line that you drew down the diagonal, so that it will be correct. Because that's usually what I do. I just line up my diagonal with my ruler and then do it. Because remember, a long time ago in one of those early videos, I made the comment about your distance between your actual 1/4 inch and your ruler, how when you put your pencil down there, depending on how thick your pen or your pencil is, it's going to be a little bit to the right. So you could actually sew on the line or to the left towards the center to make up for that. Okay, so here they're all marked. Pull them out here so you can see them. There we go. And now you just sew them. Now take your time. I know this is real little, but that's okay. Whoops, I gotta get my stitch. Oh, okay, my stitch is back to normal. All right. And you don't have to feel like you have to make all of this in one day. Actually, this is the third day I've been working on mine. And look, I've already got it off, so now I've got to take that out. Because it's, well, you can tell that it's off right there, and it needs to be right on. If my pen moved that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it with my hands here, and whoops, and not put a pin in it. And we'll see if that'll work instead. And yes, that worked instead. All right. Try it on the other end here. So you want to do every one of these. When they're all finished, you just take them and cut them right down the line you've drawn. The square ends up being this big, which is really, really little. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I wanted to mention that if you wanted to, you could chain stitch these. Although you're going to want to take your time. If you feel like it's too much because they're too small and this is the first time you've done anything small, then by all means you don't need to do that. It's up to you. I'm just chain stitching down one side, then I'll stop and then I'll come up the other side. Just get your fabric ready. And you line it up. You can actually make it so that it just goes right along there and then it just catches it. There you go. Okay, and I'll be back. All right, so if you find, and this is what's happened to me, and let me see if you can see it on this. I'm gonna put it up against this black fabric right here. All right, so when I got done and I took them apart, it's already took off some stitches. So instead of taking this and starting here on the end and stitching, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to stitch off. And if that's happening to you, then that's what you need to be doing. Don't get upset, don't get frustrated. If it's happening to you, it's happened to other people. You're not the first person that anything happens to, believe me. I've had so many things happen to me. I've asked others, "Did it ever happen to you?" No, that never happened to me. Well, sometimes I think somebody just doesn't want to admit that things happen to them. Because all kinds of stuff happens to me. So just put it back on there, take your time, and then just come off the fabric. I wouldn't suggest locking it because what'll happen is if you try to do that, it'll pull your fabric down inside your plate here. Unless you're using a single stitch, then it probably won't do that. Now let me cut all these and I'll be back. All sewn together, you'll have all these little half square triangles. Go ahead and cut all the little dog ears off, which sit on the sides there. So when you get done, they'll look like that. And then we'll move on to the next step. All right, so this is the setup for that first assembly that you make. This is M. This is a set of the half square triangles. And then this here is one of your K's. I think it's K2. But it doesn't make any difference. What you're trying to match up is these fabrics here because you're actually making what is considered to be called a bear's claw. So that's what it'll look like. And then when I get it, I'll sew it here in a minute. You sew first these 3 units right here. Then you sew these 3 right here by themselves. And then we'll attach this one. And I'll show you in a sec. Sewn I call this a row, and this a row. What you're going to do is, if you look at it, put this one in here. It's going to end up looking like that. So we can take this one and sew it to this, and then we'll sew this one to this one. Of course, I don't have my pins on me. And what you're looking at is you're looking at this edge here when you pin it. Making sure that this matches up and this, and you're going to sew down this side. I'll pin at the end. This will have a little tail on it. Yowza, yeah. Okay. Still sewing it at 1/4 of an inch, even though the little squares are tiny. And you flip it open. It should look like that. That's the bottom, like that. And then we're going to, when you flip it over, you can pin, you can dovetail these first two here. So this one gets dovetailed, the very top one. There's nothing for the next one. And you can take these dog ears if you want off beforehand. I just left them on. And if you're leery about which end to start on, I would say flip it upside down and start on that side. If you're worried about starting here, if you don't feel that you can get the 1/4 inch coming through here, just turn it upside down. It doesn't make any difference that it's pinned upside down. That's okay. You just need to be able to see it, that's all. So let's take a look at it. Okay. And there it is. All right, now I'm just going to take it over to the ironing board, and this is considered a bear's paw. And I'll go ahead and I'll clip these little tails off. And that's one. And then we do another one this color, and then we do the next two a different color. So let me get this iron and I'll be right back. So this is the design that it shows on the pattern, where you have the dark and the medium up top, and then the light and the medium down here at the bottom. I'm going to sew these together, and then I'm going to place them in a square. And when it comes to pinning these together, what I do is I'm trying to get the middle of this right here. So I fold it in half, and I'm matching this corner with this corner, like that. Then I just put a little crease in it, which you can see, you can barely see it. Here we go, we can see it better on this side. The crease. I take this piece here, just fold it in half. Put a little crease at the bottom down there. And then all I'm doing is matching my two creases, because you're putting this right sides together. And I know I can barely see that crease, but I can see it a little bit here. I pin the middle, then I go to each corner and I put a pin in it. Match it up, don't overlap it. You're trying to get it as straight as you can. I go down here to the corner and I actually match my tip, and then I put a pin in it sideways here like this, just to keep it straight. And then when I'm doing here is You can see a little bit, it looks like the back is more than the front. But remember now, this is on the bias, so it's going to give. So if I go like this, it's going to stretch out. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stretch it out a little bit, and I'm going to put a pin in it right here. And then when I sew that, that'll go all the way from one side to the other. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go to the corner, pin it. And then this side doesn't have a problem, so just right about where that seam is, I'm just pinning it on off the seam because I don't want it to be bulky. That's it. Then you just put it underneath the machine and you sew it. Now what I'll do is, because I don't want this to bury underneath my machine, I'm going to start about right here and go to the end, and then I'm going to turn it around and come the other direction and flip it upside down and come that way. Or you could do it over on the back, which would be good because what you're looking at is the point is right here at the edge, and you're going to go over that point when you're doing your sewing. But I'll show you here in a minute. Let me pin the other one. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to start about in the middle. And I'm going to flip it over and start where I finished and go along this back side here. And pull out my pins. If I can get a grip on it. Oops. And then when you're finished, it looks just like that. And I'm going to do all of them and iron them, and I'll show it to you when I'm finished. So I sewed these two together and these two together, and now I'm sewing them all together. And I like to keep this side straight while I sew, so it doesn't, because normally it'll have a tendency to pull downward. If you would like to see more of the cutting or more of the sewing or anything specific, please let me know in a comment down below. I'm not quite sure what all you want to see. I don't know if most of you have already sewn a lot, so you don't really need to see a lot, or if there's something specific that you're wanting to see, but let me know. And if there is anybody following this, I'd appreciate it if you'd let me know if you're having any specific problems. I've noticed today that the only problem I seem to be having is that my eyes do not like the black color. I don't know if it's the lighting in here or I'm tired, but I'm having difficulty with this black fabric. Make sure that when you sew your seams together and you prepare to iron them, that you set your seams. You want to continue doing that on everything here. Now I did not do the exact pattern. I did a little different because of my colors, but There's what I've done. Now I will go ahead and I'll iron it, and then I'll lay it out with this other. Pinned it all up, made sure it fit. The only thing is this seam has to go down where the opposite direction it was, because I'll let the others just fall in their place. And let's see here. Okay, so we're coming on the home front here. I tell you, I had planned on, I was thinking about making a postage stamp quilt, but I tell you, after I have worked with these little 1.5 inch squares, I'm not too sure I want to do that, because today I'm not happy with my 1.5 inch squares. They are way too little. Maybe if it was some other day. And I've got to admit, I've done this quilt in sections. So one day I did nothing but pick out my fabric and set it aside. The next day I did all my cutting, all the different pieces. And then the third day is when I put it together, and I've even had to break this day up. I started it yesterday and didn't get it finished. Did the top part. And then I just did these 4 squares today, and I even had to split this day in half and didn't get it all done in one sitting. Maybe all that going away from it and coming back is the problem. But I did change my colors up after I was doing it, which I don't usually do, but I did do it this time, because when I got done making one set of the colored squares, it's 2 sets are the same thing, and when I got finished with the first one and I started on the second one, I didn't like the color arrangement, so I had to go back and cut a couple other pieces of fabric. So this is the side of the barn. Now I'll just clip that off here in a minute. And that's what I've done with mine, and then I'm going to take this top piece here, which is the top of the barn, and it's going to go up there, and I'm going to sew that on, and then I'll iron it. Now I've pinned the top strip onto it. I think it needs one more pin up here. There we go. Oops. I think I better use some white thread. Hold on one second, I'll rethread my machine. Got it threaded now. Have it. One more block finished. I'll lay it out so that you can see it. Let me put the iron to it. I'll be right back. Here's the block, and I need to slide the ruler out so that you can see it did make 12.5 inches, and it will be on the board next to the other. There's number 1 and number 2. There is the finished barn quilt block for the month. And as you can see, I did colors differently than what they're showing. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and if you're having problems with any of it, by all means, you can make a comment. And I will see you next month for the 3rd block. Bye-bye.